great degree. But I wanted to introduce Terry. He's a former player, of course, and played on the edge and sometimes went over the edge a number of times as a player and as a coach.
Haven't we all?
Yeah. And as a coach, we got talking yesterday. I think I've shared with all of you the Kyle Wanvig and his, aggressive coaching coming from aggressive playing, being so loud and vocal on the bench. He literally played the game on the bench, but it wasn't in a way that was offensive. He was technically right, but he managed the bench well, but he played the game out loud. The girls weren't offended. They like it, but he yells at referees. And he said, when I played, I got kicked out of so many games, I actually became the referee's best friend. Well, Terry's been kicked out of a game or two in his lifetime. And as a player, I don't know if he's been kicked out as a coach, but we got talking about Kyle and the fact he recorded himself and he listened to it. And this past weekend, I never heard him raise his voice once. He never said a word to the referees. He had a U13 team win the gold medal in a pretty prestigious tournament. And the average U15 team played in the final. You would consider it being overachieved.
Yep.
So the exercise of listening to yourself, I got talking to Terry about it yesterday, and he told me a story. He does a lot of officiating. How many games last year would you have officiated?
About 250.
So what he learned from that experience related to this, to fit into that story of being aware of yourself. I'm going to let him tell his story because I've asked him to write a one-page essay about it that I'm going to share down the road. But go ahead, Terry. I'm going to turn the camera over to you. And
this is a pretty prestigious club, so I'm glad he brought me into the fold. First off, I've had the great opportunity to have my Uncle Wally as an uncle, and it's I remember him being, in the 60s and throughout, and so I'm blessed to have him as an uncle, and so that's I just want to say that for the record. Not that it has to be said. I think anyone who knows Wally probably thinks the same. Like Wally said, I've played. I have two boys that, like most, through minor hockey, I coached, and then once that was done, there was a bit of a void. So my wife said, well, why don't you try officiating? And like most, I just kind of shrugged it off. But after all the downtime, I didn't really want to commit too much to coaching because that's a big commitment, as we all know. So I said, well, I'll try. So I certified, did my level, and did some minor hockey for the first couple of years. And I must say, after being an official, I've been doing this for about 10 years now. It's out of all the experiences as both as a player, as a coach / parent, it's taught me a lot, especially in hindsight, because as a ref, you're more of an observer and you see the game differently. And I think it would be a really good experience is through the coaching certification if they allowed some on-ice mock refereeing experiences for these coaches. I know for myself, when I'm up and down the side doing games, sometimes I'm up the middle, sometimes I'm lining through high school, and you'll hear in the background on both benches the dynamics of the coach, of what's happening with the players and how they interact. And very quickly, as I sat there, and some coaches are quite vocal, I just was thinking to myself that, boy, I can hear myself in these coaches in my ears. And I felt just sort of ashamed because at times I was that way, where you're a little too harsh and you're kind of screaming at the officials. So when Wally did that experiment where you actually hear your voice say that, I didn't have to do that. I kind of heard that live in person. And even when you call a coach over to have that conversation, typically as a ref, when you're talking to a coach to kind of deal with sort of bench management, or they're being too vocal, I always do it away from the players, just so to kind of neutralize them, so the players aren't sort of involved. And you don't want to embarrass, but the saying of, well, kind of keep it down, do you actually hear yourself? And they don't. And many do. And sometimes, it's taken me that time to actually hear others be that vocal on the bench in a negative manner, to saying to myself, but, if I was half that asshole that this guy is, I would kick my ass. And, I kind of felt bad just through those experiences of me as a coach, in those moments. And I always tell Wally, it's when you're reffing, it's all fine, usually for the first, couple of periods, but I call it more the witching hours, when given the score on the clock and the time left in the game, all of a sudden that's when true character shows, when all of a sudden everything is smooth and even, and then all of them things start to amp up. And I do a lot of men's league hockey, and some of the upper divisions, it's quite enjoyable. You're getting guys out of the XW from the Western League, over from Europe and stuff. And those top level guys are the easiest to ref, because I guess they've matured and they really get it. They're there for the game. They play to the whistle and they stop. The more difficult ones are sort of in the mid-level range. They're skilled enough to do danger to themselves and to others, where they're thinking they still have some sort of dream in their head. Just kind of, I guess they're playing like they're 16 years old. Meanwhile, they're 40. So, but I think for me, as when I talk to Wally, because every time we're together, we're always talking hockey, is that I bring that perspective from reffing. And so he's doing here, and I'm like, and speaking, and every stories, there's some similarities. But anyways, that was it. I just kind of want to recant that story, is that, and I would hope, because I've done all the coaching certification you do through minor hockey to become a coach. And having been this many games under my belt, that amount of time, you can say as much as respect in sport. Those are really words, but until I actually got on the ice from a reffing perspective, on positioning, on angles, how quickly the game happens, and I quickly had to filter down of saying, if I did not see the call or a penalty, I don't call it. Unless it's egregious, where it's a missed high stick and you see blood, that's then we'll do something about it. But it's tough when you're reffing, because you don't have the benefit of being 3 foot standing on the bench or up in the crowd, and you quickly learn to be a little bit more sympathetic to the refs. And that's why I had said to him, it would be really nice sometimes to have those on ice sessions for the refs. But yeah, they do have them it's been quite a while for the coaches, is to have a mock game, just to have, and then have the coaches put on the stripes and just rotate them every, like on a shift, every 2-3 minutes. You guys are the refs, and just let the play go. And just to have that experience of, geez, that offside was a little more difficult to call, or, you missed that type of penalty. To be in that situation, when I first started reffing, I would be reffing with fellow refs I was coach, and they would come to me and saying, oh God, you were a real prick out there. You're always trying to, and I would just go, yeah, I guess I was. But at the time, you don't know until you kind of walked or skated in the shoes of a rep. So, but anyways, thank you guys. Thanks, Wally, for let me join the club here for a few minutes. So anyways, nice meeting you.
I'm gonna. Hi, Tom. Where you been, for Christ's sake?
Sweet.
Tom, are you still there?
Yeah, I just got on. I had to drive Jim down to work and stuff.
Okay. Anyway, I'm at my nephew's in Winnipeg, and I just Hal had sent me a text, and I just thought, okay, I'm gonna try to get on, because we're heading out to do a little traveling in Winnipeg and visiting some sites before we go to the junior high school for my deceased brother's recognition today. We just finished to talk about my nephew becoming a referee and being embarrassed because he heard the coaches and thought, boy, if I was half that bad, I was bad. So his awareness of officiating, it's just like the awareness of a coach. He didn't become aware of the yelling, the screaming, and the belittling that went on from coaches until he was on the bench as a referee. And I think the task of having a coach record themselves is huge. They just listen to themselves. It won't solve the problem forever, but you'll certainly see an improvement in coach communication and influence on the team. And the coach has to be in control of his emotions. When he loses it, the team is going to follow suit. So that's sort of one of the things that I wanted to talk about. And Terry's going to write a one-page essay trying to get this message across, that respecting officials in the Respect in Sport module. I told Terry this morning, I said, I have 2 slides and I've created, in addition to the Hockey Canada site that is a part of Respect in Sport, at a hands-on clinic. And it's a pyramid. At the top is the officials. Bottom left corner is the coach. Bottom right corner are the parents. And there's one important group missing in the middle, and the second slide, I'll move to the next slide, and the word players are in the middle. When you look at that picture, the only person that's neutral is the official. And they're respecting the safety of the game. They're impartial. They're making the best calls they can, but this idea of the role of a coach, the role of a parent, and the role of the official needs to really be the player. And I think that's something that I sort of wanted to bring up and get brought in, just so you guys knew I'm here in Winnipeg, but we're still talking hockey. So